Good morning to all our Jobs for Michigan's graduates, family, and supporters joining for our first Coffee with a Purpose of the new year. My name is Kristen Harrington, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Executive Director for Youth Solutions, the nonprofit connecting and inspiring youth to achieve a future beyond imagination. Today, I'm honored to be joined, hopefully in the near future, by our co-moderator, Michigan's Lieutenant Governor, Garland Gilchrist, and by our JMG panelists, Crystal Steele, Nolan Henson, and Caitlin DeLong. As always, they are the true stars of this coffee hour, and we'll be hearing from each of them momentarily. Today's event kicks off Careers in Public Service Month, which provides opportunities for youth to learn about career paths in the public sector. As mentioned, the Lieutenant Governor will be joining us briefly in just a moment for this conversation, and we are thrilled to have him here today to share some of his experiences in the public sector and to engage our young people in a conversation about the importance of leadership development and civic engagement. So I'll take this opportunity to introduce the Lieutenant Governor with great pleasure. He has dedicated his career to solving problems for hardworking families, from spearheading campaigns for equality and justice to harnessing technology to solve everyday problems for Detroiters. His focus has consistently remained on serving the public by getting this work done. Growing up, he and his family were active in the Detroit community, including serving in leadership roles within various neighborhood associations. The Lieutenant Governor's background and experience is a tremendous value to our discussion. Just one moment. I'm getting an update in. And unfortunately, it looks like the Lieutenant Governor has not been able to join us yet.
Hey, I'm here now.
Oh, fantastic. Good timing. Welcome, Lieutenant Governor.
How you doing? Good morning, everyone.
It's great to have you.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Yes, so Lieutenant Governor, we're really excited about this discussion around youth leadership development and civic engagement as a means to make change and transform our communities.
Great. So ready. I mean, look, I'm excited about this opportunity too. I mean, I always am very eager to engage with young people about the leadership potential, and not even just potential, but the leadership that is already present, it's already being demonstrated by young people. I as a relatively young person in elected office, I always kind of struggle with people telling young people that they have potential, as opposed to like saying that you actually are a leader. And I think folks that participated in this program, the alums of this program, really demonstrate folks that are stepping up and stepping into their power already, and that power to make change and power to transform communities for the better is super exciting. And I'm really eager to speak to our panelists about it. So can I go ahead and introduce everyone, or are we ready to go?
That would be phenomenal. Thanks.
Okay, great. So I know we got, Josh Michigan grads panelists here from several high schools across the state. And so we have Crystal Steele from Hartford High School on. We have Caitlin DeLong, who's an alum from Wendover High School in Midland. We have Nolan Henson, who's an alum from Flint Southwestern Classical Academy and a current student at CMU. So I want to thank all of you for being here. My understanding is we have, like 100 plus people on this call today. And so they're all eager to hear from you, much more than they are to hear from me. So Chris, okay.
Thanks so much, Lieutenant Governor. We are so excited you're all joining in this important and timely discussion. For our audience members who wish to ask a question of our panelists, or of course, my esteemed co-moderator, please use the chat function, as we'll be monitoring throughout the session, and have reserved time at the end for audience questions. So now, with housekeeping aside and coffee freshly brewed, let's get started. First, I'll ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves. And Crystal, we'll go ahead and start with you.
Hello and good morning. My name is Crystal Steele. I'm currently a senior at Hartford High School and I'm taking college classes through LMC. I'm also my JMG class's Vice President of Leadership Development. And after I graduate, I plan on attending LMC to start my plans of becoming an ultrasound technician. Then I plan to transfer to GVSU to finish those plans.
Nice. Thank you so much. Caitlin?
Hi, my name's Caitlin DeWong. I'm 20 years old. I have been graduated from school for 2 years now. I was in JMG for 2 years as well. I was super involved from being president to co-president. I went to every single leadership day, legislative day. I've even went to conferences in DC. I am currently on the council for youth advisory, and we are just trying to get involved with all of our youth right now.
Thanks, Caitlin. And last but certainly not least, our wonderful Youth Solutions intern, Nolan.
Hello, everyone. I am Nolan Henson. I'm from Flint, Michigan. I'm 20 years old. I'm currently a student at Central Michigan University studying public and nonprofit administration and sociology. I'm minoring in leadership, and I'm also getting 2 undergraduate certificates in international non-governmental organization administration and public policy analysis. At Central, I'm involved with NAACP. I serve as an inclusion assistant in the residence halls, and I'm a mentor in the Leader Advancement Scholarship cohort.
Thanks, Nolan. Welcome to all 3 of you. And back to you, Lieutenant Governor.
Yeah, this is great. Y'all are impressive. And Nolan, is there something that you're not doing at Central Michigan University? Just for the record, that's really impressive, and I appreciate that. So look, the topic today is youth leadership development and civic engagement, which I think is appropriate for the leaders that we have on this call today. So we're going to talk about some of the challenges that the country and the state are currently facing, and just how young people can be agents of change to deal with those challenges. But we should have like a grounding question to start. So I want to ask each panelist a basic question. How do you define leadership? Like, leadership is a word that gets thrown out a lot, but how would you define it? What does it mean to you? And so I want to start, Caitlin, with you. How do you define leadership? And then we'll go to Crystal, then we'll go to Nolan after that. But Caitlin, you please start.
So to me, leadership's a quality someone has that can persuade large groups of people to follow them. Whether it's right, wrong, whatever they believe, it's going to help persuade that group of people. But it's not something that, it's something that a lot of people just come with. Some have to learn that, but it's a quality someone has.
Okay, appreciate that. Crystal, how you define leadership?
I would define leadership as taking charge and being the person others look to seek help when needed. And a leader puts others first and makes sure that everything gets done on time.
Like the responsible one for making sure things happen. I like that. Nolan, what's your definition of leadership?
Like Crystal and Caitlin both said, they're qualities that allow you to influence other, like Caitlin said, and then like the positive spin that Crystal put on it as well. It's really like acting and seeing these environments and creating the change that you want to see, and that's at any point that you see the problem.
Okay, I want to stick with that, Nolan. So why is right now so critical for young people to be leaders? Why is it so important at this moment?
Yeah. So I mentioned previously that I'm a leader advancement scholar at Central. And my scholarship director, Dan Gakin, he always tells us that we're the leaders of today. At our first interview, that's what he told us. And leadership doesn't have a start point. It's never too early to get involved. Like, if you're in elementary school and you see something inadequate at school, you can ask your parents to take you to that board meeting so you can speak and represent your student body. So it's at any point in time that you can just spark your fire.
That's right. Never start date. I like that quote. I'm going to use that in a speech, and I'm gonna steal that from you, so you know. Okay, so Crystal, can you give me a sense, just from your personal experience, what kind of steps have you taken in your own personal leadership development journey, and how do you hope that it'll benefit you in the future? And then I want to ask that same question to Caitlin Nolan, but Crystal, I want to start with you on that.
I have taken steps in my personal leadership development by taking charge in most of the things we do in JMG, whether that be community service events, projects we do in JMG. I try my best to make myself available at any time and get others involved in the things we do. I have worked my way up from my sophomore year of being a historian to now my senior year of being the vice president. And I used to be the type of person that would just take charge and not really let anybody do the work. I would just kind of get it done and make sure that it was done on time. But I have taken a step back and I've learned how to assign tasks to others and let them kind of get their stuff done on time and just be there when they need help.
Very, very important leadership journey that you've already gone through in a very short period of time. That's great. What about you, Caitlin?
So for me personally, I was quite the opposite. I was super quiet. I wouldn't ever talk. And so I feel getting into JMG, I was working on breaking out of my shell, being a voice, being able to stand up for people, actually being able to talk. Like before, I was just kind of huddled in a corner and all of my thoughts I felt didn't matter and that I couldn't do anything. So I took every chance that I could, whether it was volunteer opportunities, whether it was leading groups, whether it was like even DC, I went to that leadership conference. That was perfect for me because it helped me meet people from all over, not even the States, but from the world. We had international kids there. And I feel just for me, I have just taken every opportunity for speaking, for being in groups, being in leadership opportunities, just for me to open out of my shell because I feel I could not have been any help if I was just going to sit and be quiet. It wasn't going to help anybody.
That's great. You found your voice. That is inspiring. Nolan, talk about your journey.
Yeah, so one major step that I took in my leadership development was coming to CMU. CMU's motto is putting our stamp on this world, and seeing that motto and seeing the size of the community and seeing the work that the students are actually putting in the community just made me feel at home in all honesty and truth. Seeing that Central Michigan University is one of the few universities in the United States that has a leadership institute focusing on promoting and producing good leaders to move into the world. So getting involved with their programs like Leadership Safari, being involved with the Leadership Advancement Scholars, and also being a multicultural advancement scholar on campus really gave me the opportunities to get to learn about myself further and learn about other communities so I can better assist them.
Wow. Nolan, I would echo the Lieutenant Governor in saying I love your quote, leadership doesn't have a starting point. And I think Crystal and Caitlin both demonstrated that in what they were saying. But Crystal, even noting that you're already working on empowering people at such a young age. It's just phenomenal to listen to this conversation. So to our panelists, we know that our country is fraught with challenges, from the COVID-19 pandemic to racial inequalities to stark divisions along party lines. So to each of you, if you had the opportunity to join President Biden and Vice President Harris for dinner, what advice would you give them in leading us through these challenges? Caitlin, let's start with you.
So I feel like my major part of advice I would give to them is to be involved. They say that they care. They say that they want to help us and that they understand, but they're not here. They're not in our cities seeing the people sleeping on the benches. They're not in our cities seeing the kids crying and starving or sad because they don't even have somewhere they feel safe. They don't see anything. They don't see the hardships in the world. They just think that they do. They say that they understand. They say that they are there and they'll support us and they will make all these changes, but they're making changes that aren't helping because they don't really know what's going on. So I feel that if I could tell them anything, it would be involved, actually go to these cities, go to these states, go to these places where all of this is going on and be there, show that you care, show that you actually, that we matter to you. Like, you're supposed to run us, but it doesn't look like you actually even care about it.
Thanks, Caitlin. How about you, Nolan?
I will honestly amplify what Caitlin said. As a leader, when you're a part of just like a higher level and you're like you're president of the United States and the vice president of the United States, you have to take that step down into these communities. It's one way to read a statistic and to read all of the numbers, but to actually see it in real life is another thing, as Caitlin was saying. I would just suggest them just increase civic engagement and really get to learn the cities that aren't on the screens all the time, hear these stories that aren't always heard and amplified in our normal policies.
Mm-hmm. Thank you both. Crystal?
Exactly what Caitlin and Nolan said. I agree 100%, just to get more involved. But I would also give them advice that we need a strong, passionate leader who can bring everyone back together, especially with the COVID times and the hard times we're going through. A lot of people are going through rough patches, and we just need somebody that could bring everybody back together. And I would also stress the fact that they should look to people in the youth and make their voices heard as well.
Mm-hmm. And it strikes me the power of this conversation in doing just what you three are talking about, amplifying the youth message, which is what this is all about. All right, great. So Nolan, what can the young people of our country do to bridge the divides that we're experiencing, most of which are fueled by adults?
Something that the youth can do right now is educating themselves on the past. The past matters. The past matters, and the past is probably the reason for the present, in all honesty and truth, and the condition of the world today. So educating themselves on the past and learning how they should act to make a better future. That's the one thing I think they can do, to bring us all together and learn about one another, to better engage with one another.
Thank you. Caitlin, what have you learned as a youth leader to help yourself and those around you navigate the challenges that we're going through this year and last?
I feel like through everything, I needed someone to show me my worth. And that's what JMG did. That's what my specialist helped me with, Kim. She checked up on me, made sure I was okay. So I feel like it's the hope that I got. And I totally lost my whole train of thought. I'm not.
Hey, that's okay. What have you learned as a youth leader to help yourself and those around you navigate the challenges that we're going through this year and last?
So finding my worth showed that I had goals in life. It showed that I could achieve those goals. And I feel that me knowing I could achieve my goals made me help that other people know that they could achieve their goals. Like, I felt like I wanted to do what Kim does. I want to go out there and show that there are resources that can help you succeed for whatever you want to do. There are people that actually care to help you succeed. And I feel like that was a big part of what I've learned.
Oh, thank you, Caitlin. And because she deserves every shout out, she's referencing Kim Bordeaux, one of our phenomenal specialists and now managers within the Jobs for Michigan's Graduates Network. Lieutenant Governor, would you share with the panelists your background in leadership and civic engagement and how it led to change and to where you are now?
So first of all, I want to say that I am very much appreciating this conversation here, and I also appreciate the sentiment from Caitlin about how important it is to show up as a leader. And that's really grounded in. So for me, for those who don't know, so I grew up in Detroit, and my parents were, for the first time my child was in Detroit, and my parents were pretty active in our neighborhoods in addition to their like kind of regular jobs. And even when we moved to Farmington, Michigan, they were still very active in our neighborhood. So I saw what it meant to like literally like hold meetings in your living room where your neighbors came and talked about problems that we wanted to all collectively solve, which is a form of bringing people together so that we all can decide how we move forward and how we do so together. So that's kind of been ingrained in me. And so even after I did my kind of studies, I went to University of Michigan and I was an engineer, and when I was on campus, I'm really working to find ways to connect with other students and how we can make our campus better. Because that's where I was. And so like I led an organization for Black men that was about creating safe spaces for positive experiences for them, many of whom were coming to a giant University of Michigan, where a lot of people didn't look like them, and how they could navigate that safely and successfully. We had some big challenges all the way up to the Supreme Court when I was in college in 2004, when the University of Michigan's admissions policy was challenged all the way to the Supreme Court, and so helping coordinate students responding to that. So that was my first practical taste of like trying to work with others toward a big collective common goal and playing a leadership role in that. And so then after I left campus, I moved to the West Coast and I got involved in different nonprofits and civic organizations in Seattle where I lived. But ultimately, and this gets back to showing up, in 2009, I moved to Washington, D.C., and I became a community organizer, which literally means your job is to help people develop the leadership potential they have, is to let people know that they have power and that they can do something about the problems that they see in their community and that they actually have what they need to solve it. Like, they don't need someone else to fix it for them. They have the capabilities and intelligence and resources to actually solve those problems. And the way that you help people realize that is by showing up and by listening to them and by seeing their experiences and by helping them maybe take a slightly different perspective on their experience so that they can then know how to navigate it and empower themselves. And that has really stuck with me. I did that for 5 years, all across the communities, all across the country. And I think about those experiences every single day as Lieutenant Governor of Michigan, because in order for us to solve problems effectively at the state level, we need to have people from a diverse group of experiences and backgrounds at the decision-making table. That's why Governor Whitmer and I have worked really hard to make sure that our administration is as diverse as the state of Michigan is. And diversity means, different aspects of identity, gender, race, ethnicity, et cetera. It also means diversity of life experiences, people who have come from lower income or low wealth backgrounds, people who are from rural parts of our state and urban parts of our state, people who are from tribal nations in big cities, people who are from the suburbs, people who may be immigrants, people who have moved to Michigan, and have all that reflected at the tables of decision making, I think leads to better policies, because all these people have not only shown up, but have experienced the different aspects of the challenges that we face every single day. And so I think with that a lot, and I hope that it leads to better policies that lead to better outcomes for people, because that's frankly how my success as Lieutenant Governor gets measured. And so we're working hard to make sure that we reflect that. And I know that we have a bright future to look forward to, because all of you, I think, represent how to courageously and unapologetically bring your full experiences to the table of leadership to make that table better for the people who you're serving. So I appreciate that. And so I think kind of connected to that question, I want to ask each of you about the challenges that your particular communities face today and what will make it better. And I want you to define community in whatever way makes sense for you. It can be your geographic community, be people who you're connected to, like, it doesn't matter how you define it. But I would like to hear from you. What do you think the most important challenges are and how you would make them better? So Nolan, I want to kick that question to you first.
A problem in my community, and I'm going to speak to my community of Flint, Michigan, is an overall lack of access to resources. And that access to resources could honestly be funding to pay for quality resources like quality education, building back into our home value in the city of Flint. We had a mass move out after GM left, and then in hand with the Flint water crisis, we had another mass move out of residents. So we lost a mass property tax as well. So not having the funding in Flint to actually produce quality education to make the fixes to the school at a point in high school, we were protesting for heat because it just wasn't there. So just overall lack of resources.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. And that's real. Crystal, please.
Okay. One of the challenges facing my community would be drug use. When you drive through Hartford, you'll see like meth watch signs throughout the town. Personally, throughout my life, my dad struggled with drug use and staying clean. And I want to bring this to the light for others who can't or are afraid to speak up. I want to use my voice to help with awareness and prevention. And other challenges facing my community is rural internet. With the school year being as crazy as it is due to COVID, and a lot of our schooling is online currently, Students have been having trouble even getting on the Google Meets or getting kicked off of the Google Meets. We need to take steps to change this and get better internet accessible to students. The world is changing, and a lot of things have to do with being online. Better internet is a need.
Thank you, Crystal. As an aside, I want to make sure that my office stays connected with you on that internet question. It's something that I care very deeply about and spending a lot of time on trying to fix that. So we want to make sure that we stay connected on that. Caitlin, what are the biggest challenges that you see facing your community, and what would help solve them?
I feel like in my community specifically, I live in Midland, and I feel like we are one of the wealthier cities. We have plenty of people here that have lots and lots of money, but there's a big division where you either have money or you don't. And if you don't have money, it feels like you're getting pushed out of the city, like they don't want you there, like they're not trying to help you because you don't have money, when it should be the other way around. Like, I don't have money, I'm struggling, I feel like I should need the help. Instead, it feels like everybody else that already has the money that doesn't really need the help is getting extra help for no reason. And I feel like that's a big problem because it ends up, I see people riding bikes around Midland just so they don't have to sleep on a bench, so that they can live. Like, they don't have houses, and all of our shelters are all over capacity, and they tell them that they have to go all the way down 2 hours away to even have a place to stay. And especially after all of the floods, I know me personally, I was affected by that, and I haven't even gotten, like, yeah, they say you can have unemployment to help you, but if it's like me, I haven't gotten a single cent back since March. So how is that helping me? I lost my house, I lost everything, and there's no one that wants to keep on helping me because I didn't own my home, so it doesn't matter. So it's like, if you don't have money, then you don't even get the help, and they just keep on pushing you and pushing you and pushing you. And it's really hard.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Caitlin. This is real, and I appreciate the honesty and the transparency that everyone is coming through here today. I think we have to be real in order to solve anything, and so I appreciate that. So, it's always tough because you may hear a version of this question a lot, kind of like, what's the one thing, if you said there was one thing that you want young people to do in this coming year to get more engaged? But I do want to ask that question, amidst everything that's happening, local level, state level, national level, if you could just recommend to the young person who is on this call, who really wants to take that next step and that leap into their leadership. I'm sure they would want to hear from all of you, what your recommendation is, what's the one thing they should do. So Crystal, what is the one action that young people can commit to taking in the to get more engaged?
Okay, so my generation has mainly grown up with internet and all types of social media. I believe one action that young people can commit to taking in the coming years to get more engaged, whether that be in their community, their state, or even nationally, is to use their platform for good, to make their voices heard and speak for the others who can.
All right, I like it. Caitlin, what's one thing? You just say one thing.
I feel like the one thing I would say is actually speak out. Just do it. Don't be scared. Someone's going to listen to you. It doesn't matter if it's one person. It doesn't matter if it's 5 people. If you feel passionate about it, you say it.
That's right. Everybody's voice is important. Love it. Nolan, one thing.
One thing that I would say that students should do to get more engaged is educating themselves before the elections, educating themselves on the new policies that are coming out, educating themselves on the new elected officials, because that's where those are the people that you're going to see administering the work in your community. So educating yourself before supporting them all in all.
So that's an important segue to really what I want to talk about next, is voting, elections, and participation. In 2020, if you were watching the news, it's very difficult to miss the fact that we had elections last year. And there were elections, president, vice president, all the way down to the local level. And there are elections every year at some level. And it's important. There's some research that is being finalized from this last election that showed that, in Michigan, just over 46% of adults age 18 to 29 voted. Nationally, however, that number was more than 50%, like 52 to 55% of 18 to 29-year-olds participated in the voting process. The youth vote, especially, young voters of color, that did play a significant role in the state of Michigan's election outcomes. I tried to help that be the case. But nevertheless, it was important. Now, we know that elections do have consequences, like who is in office and the choices that they make. Like that does matter a great deal. And so it is important for voters of every generation, but I think it's particularly important for younger voters who frankly have the highest stake in any election because of how much life you have ahead of you, God willing. I think it's really critical that young people participate more and more in the voting electoral process, and that it is seen as relevant. So Nolan, I want to start with you. This again, your perspective. You talked about it a little bit. If you could elaborate a little more, just on how important it is for young people to vote in all elections. Like, why is that important?
Yeah, so I'm happy you emphasize all elections. All elections, like how we previously mentioned, on a local level, state level, and national level. I think oftentimes young people get caught up in, oh, well, there's more time to do it later, so I'm not going to vote when I'm 18, I'll vote later. But that policy is going to affect you for the next 7 years. So it's just really taking that opportunity to map out your world for today and tomorrow. So looking out for yourself in the future and making sure that these elected officials that are at the board of trustees for your community college are actually fueling into your community college and creating relevant programs that can be beneficial to you and your community. Understanding, like I previously said, that policies last longer than just the election.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate that. Crystal, so I was told that your class was visited, virtually over a 3-day period by the Progressive Voter Turnout Project this past fall. And they talked with students about the political process, about voting, about why voting matters. If you could share with this group kind of what were some of your takeaways from that experience, and what were the key lessons that you learned?
Yeah, so some of the key takeaways I have learned from the presentations are that every vote does matter. One of the things we did in class was vote on what candies we like, social media apps were better, what fast food restaurants we thought were better. And through this activity, I learned that seeking out and saying your opinion could persuade others to agree with you and vote on your side. And having more people vote in the second step rather than the first could have a big impact on the voting outcome. Another thing I learned was the different types of voters. I personally was an educational voter, and a lot of students in our class were road voters. The roads in Hartford are horrible. And for this presentation, we were asked to make posters that described what types of voters we were. And we were also stressed the fact on the youth voting. And I'm actually 18, and I went out and voted this election for the first time.
Very exciting. Thank you for voting. There you go. My first election, my first election was in 2000. That's when I cast my first vote. So, that's great, though. And it is interesting to think about, like, the type of voter you are. What's the issue that really drives you? Because for most people, there are one or two things that are just like, this is the thing that I started in with. So that's really great to see. Okay, Caitlin. So for you, I want to be clear that voting is very important. And voting is also not like the only thing you should do. So, voting is certainly one step towards contributing to system level change. I'm curious about your perspective on what other types of steps that people can take to drive change at the system level so things can be better.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like, I did not get to vote this year, unfortunately, because of everything with the flood. I lost all of my paperwork. They didn't know I was me, so I unfortunately couldn't do it. So I personally even had to go about a different route. I feel like speaking out is just one of the biggest, one of the easiest ways to make a difference, to put yourself out there, to get informed. Like, I will get involved with anything that has to do. I have met with Senator Thomas in conferences. I have went to all of any meetings, anything that I can get myself into for, as far as meetings and talking to people who can make a bigger difference. I try to weasel my way into anywhere I can. And I feel like if other people could do that, that's just another way to help, to just be persistent, keep on saying things, find alternative routes. By make a TikTok. You can make a TikTok and make it go viral. Like, literally just do something. Actually get up, get out and do it, because you're not going to get anything done if you don't.
No doubt. There are things won't happen in the world unless somebody does them. And so, like, you should do it. And it should be you. I love that. Nolan, I want to hear your perspective on this. And then I'll come to Chris after that. What's your perspective on this? What else can people do to get system change?
One thing that we can do to make like a systemic level change is really implementing equity in these early policy developments. So going to interest meetings, like interest group meetings on state policy development, on your local city hall meetings, while they're talking about issues, please think about solutions that implement equity as well. If you realize that there's a mass number of marginalized community members in your community, think about some equitable ways that you can pass out more resources to those communities, because the funding's there, the money's there, it's all there.
All right, great. Crystal.
I agree with Caitlin and Nolan again on this one. Just make your voice be heard and get out there in any way you can. Like she said, TikTok is a very big platform that people get out there, and it can go viral in a split second. There's all different sides of TikTok, especially political TikTok has been everywhere recently.
All right, I'm with that. I'm looking to see all these political TikToks. So that's what's up. Okay, so the last question for this part, and then I think we have some questions from the folks who are participating, is just your perspective. What is the biggest challenge from your perspective facing young people today? Chris, I want to start with you. Biggest challenge facing young people.
Okay, I believe some of the challenge facing the youth today are ageism and book and college costs. Throughout personal experience from starting work at Subway at the age of 16, is the miners' minimum wage is not much. And I understand people think miners don't have bills or don't have the need to make as much, but that's not the case for everyone. I currently am 18 and work at Walmart and live on my own. Even making slightly above minimum wage is not enough because there are limits on the amount of time you can work due to being in school. And even though I'm 18 and technically not a minor, I'm in high school, so I'm counted as a minor. Another thing would be the college and books cost. Currently, through my experience of taking college classes through LMC and only having 2 classes and only having to buy like 2 books, it was like $400 just for the books. And students that parents make too much where they can't afford to pay through everything through their college, but they make not enough. It's just hard on them, and they have to think about the costs throughout college, which is difficult, and they don't make enough in federal grants.
Yep, all that's really real. Caitlin, most important issue.
I feel like the most important issue to me is that no one has confidence. All of the youth get put into this bracket where all you do is make TikTok videos and sit on social media. You aren't informed on the real world, so your opinion's not going to matter. And I just feel like they need to know that you're about to be the adults. You are about to be the ones that are going to be running this whole entire world. Like, you need to know that you do matter, and just because you feel like you're put into this little bracket where you're just a social media star and that's all you can be and that's all you can ever grow up to be, that I feel you need to know that you have more worth than that. You can have more goals than just being a social media star, and I feel like you shouldn't feel like you're stuck.
I love that. Nolan, wrap us up.
Yeah, so I would go back to the ageism piece. Really, like, a lot of youth are signified by their age, like they're placed into these small boxes and categories based upon similar trends amongst people of their age rank. And that may not be the case. Like, they're not taken serious. They aren't given opportunities to even get involved with political processes in their city. Like, some people, like when I was young, I don't remember any legislative anything that I could have got involved with in my local government. But creating these programs are important because, like we said before, like the youth are the leaders of today.
Thanks, y'all.
Wow. I would just say that the authenticity and candor in your responses is just so unbelievable to me, sitting and listening to all of this. And it's such a testament to why amplifying the youth voice really matters. So thank you to the three of you and to the Lieutenant Governor for participating in this. We do have some questions from our audience members who are eager to hear from all four of you. Please keep the questions coming because we do have a little bit more time and we'll try to get through as many as possible. So the first one is from Cordell Zachary, one of our phenomenal HR partners at Steelcase. And this is to the Lieutenant Governor and Nolan. Cordell asks, as a Black male, do you feel an added sense of pressure to be a leader in your community or on campus? And I would say first to you, Nolan, and then we'll go to the Lieutenant Governor.
Yes, there is. There is a pressure to be a leader. Yeah, okay, I'm heard. Okay, yes, there is a pressure to be a leader on campus. Currently on campus, I'm involved with the NAACP, and I'm on the executive board, and I'm the outreach chair. So creating spaces for people of color to be represented in like PWI organizations that just may not have a lot of minority representation all in all. So finding ways to collaborate with residence life to promote equity and inclusion and promoting that educational piece is very important. Actually, on campus, I won an award for the Emerging Leader Award at Black Males Rock. So I was identified as the leader for that.
Yeah, I think the short answer to the question is absolutely, and part of that comes from this very odd phenomenon when you're the only person like you in a room, you know, if you're the only woman at the table, if you're the only Black person at the table, what gets foisted upon you is the responsibility of that whole group of people. So that, you know, I have to be the Black voice, even though, you know, the Black experience is quite wide and quite diverse. And it's not like I'm not the only person, like the only Black experience is not mine, right? And so I do think there is an additional responsibility that is there, whether that's fair or not. And I think about that every day, even in being in the position as I move throughout the state of Michigan. You know, it's always interesting to me that, you know, like I said, I'm Black, I'm from Detroit, I live in Detroit now. And people are like surprised when I show up someplace else. And it's like, well, I mean, I'm here like literally for everybody. Like I was elected for the entire state of Michigan, all 3 million people, both peninsulas. And and so, you know, it's important to be there and to show up like that, as Caitlin said. And I think that, so I try to use that responsibility that is foisted upon me as an opportunity to show people that it's my job to be a responsive leader. Mm-hmm. And I do think that there's more pressure on me to do that because of who I am, because of where I come from, because of what I look like.
Oh, thank you both. And thanks to Cordell for sharing that question. Here's another question from Alan Lynch. In speaking to some young people this year, they felt that some political groups took their vote for granted. How do the panelists feel that they can get policymakers to hear their concerns consistently, not just get their vote for the next election? And so I'm interested in asking that to our young people. And then I would also ask somewhat the reverse, Lieutenant Governor, for your weigh in on that. Let's start with Caitlin. How can policymakers hear your concerns consistently, not just during election time?
Be prominent all of the time. Voice all year round. You don't have to do it just at election time. You don't have to do it just when the president's elected. You can do it when senators, when Congress, you can do it whenever. You can always voice. And that's what you need to do. You need to always be out there. You need to always be active. You can't just do it one time a year and expect, oh, no one listens to me. Like, you have to be out there. You have to make yourself known.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it's exciting to hear, Caitlin. It sounds like JMG has given you the platform to be able to do that repeatedly, which is exciting. How about you, Crystal?
What Caitlin said, always getting out there, finding different ways to make your voice heard at all points in the year, not just during elections, but constantly for anything, and finding ways to get out there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Nolan?
One way that I would say that our officials can be able to hear us through policy is like how I previously mentioned, through those early developments, when they ask for those interest groups to come in, when they ask for them to when they try to buffer policies through the public, like speak up during those processes. Even if you can't directly get in contact with them, go to those early on meetings. And then from then on forward, like write to your representatives, write to your government officials as well. Give them ideas for programs, give them ideas to feed into your community, because somebody's reading them. Like, they aren't just throwing them away. Like, it's to serve the public and to serve us. So I would do that. Get engaged in your community, work in your community, work towards the policy, and also write to the government officials, because you never know when your story is going to be signified.
Wow, Lieutenant Governor, I think our panelists have a future in community organizing if they had an interest. Yeah, Nolan?
I just want to say hi to Mr. Lynch.
No.
No doubt about it. I mean, let me just first say, like, what Nolan said is correct. Like, when people call or write, like, we actually see that. Like, I actually spend time 1 or 2 days a week actually making return phone calls to people who have reached out to our office. Either they've submitted something on our website, or they've called with an issue, or called to say thank you, or called to complain, like whatever it is. Like, we actually see that stuff, and it does bubble up to myself and the governor. We spend time responding to those. Right? So yeah, you're not just like sending it into the abyss or into the ether. Like, it actually goes to a person, and those things can bubble up to me at my level. You know, this is a two-way street. And so part of the issue, I think, is that elected leaders need to show up outside of election years, right? So like, part of it is like, if I only see you during the election, I can only talk to you during the election, right? So it is my responsibility to show that I am present and engaged and listening the whole time I'm in the public service. And so I certainly have tried to be very aggressive about that while I've been in office. The pandemic has made doing that physically more challenging and less safe for a lot of reasons, but then trying to do that virtually as aggressively as possible has been important to me. And I want to continue to do that. And so, I think that it's our responsibility as public servants to make sure that you know that we're there to actually listen and that we actually care. Going back to the very beginning of this conversation, like, one of the ways you demonstrate you care is you show up with ears open and mouths closed. And so I try to do that. And I think if that is a principle that public servants embody consistently, then I think people will feel like they have more opportunities to be engaged in the decision-making process.
Yeah, thank you, all of you. From our board chairperson, Barbara Anderson, to all of our panelists, would any of you consider running for elected office? Nolan, let's start with you. You had a good smile, so perhaps you've considered it.
I would. I think I would. I haven't yet come up with a position I would want to run for, but I think I've been thinking about how I've been wanting to transfer from nonprofit sector, because I'm studying public and nonprofit administration, into like the public sector as well, and looking at those local opportunities to get engaged with community and actually build community, like Lieutenant Governor Gilchrist did in his beginning days at DC.
Nice. Good to hear. How about you, Crystal? Any public office in your future?
No, I do not think so. I'd rather just make my voice heard as like here, but not run for elected official. I've always had a dream of being in the medical field, so I'd like to stick to that.
And if 2020 has showed us anything, it's the importance of our healthcare workers. So good decision there. Last but not least, Caitlin.
I personally would not. I feel that if I did go for an office, I would feel restricted. I want to be able to just go wherever I want to be able to go and do it. I don't want to have to feel like I'm confined to a certain small area. I want to be able to go anywhere and speak for everybody.
Okay. All right.
Can I
Please, yeah.
So basically, I appreciate all these answers. It's real. Given as that I was someone who did not see myself ever running for public office, I wanted to be a software developer. That's what I wanted. So that's what I went to college for. I worked at Microsoft doing that after college, et cetera. That obviously wasn't the whole plan. so what I would just encourage you all to think about is, I want you to dive like all the way into the things that you're working on right now and that you are aspiring toward, and to do those things and work hard and be successful. And I want you to recognize that like sometimes something might come up that you weren't anticipating, that you weren't expecting. Trust me, I was not expecting then candidate Gretchen Whitmer to call me and ask me to be her running mate. I wasn't expecting that. I was minding my own business. So just things, sometimes opportunities will be presented to you that you are prepared for that you weren't anticipating. So just be open to those experiences, because I think the experiences that you have and that you're gonna get over the years are gonna be quite valuable in your leadership journey.
Thank you to everybody. Lieutenant Governor, it is Careers in Public Service Month, so the plug for the public sector, I think, is really important as our young people explore all of the meaning opportunities that exist within the public sector. So this question is from Kristen Nicholson, one of our phenomenal Jobs for Michigan's graduate specialists, and it's to the Lieutenant Governor. What are politicians or government as a whole doing to build the trust of young people for change in policies?
Yeah, this is an important question. So I want to revisit something I said earlier, which is I think that in many ways, young people have the most at stake when it comes to policy decisions that are being made right now, because you literally have the most road ahead of you to navigate or to deal with the implications or the policies. And so for me, in a very practical sense, that's been a couple things. So in the last couple of years, there have been a number of initiatives that I've been leading for the state, dealing with racial disparities in the COVID-19 pandemic, dealing with reforming our jail and pretrial incarceration system across the state. And one of the things that was always very important, that's been important to me in both those efforts, is to make sure that we literally had at least one young person at the table of decision making where we were developing and debating and considering different policy directions where we could go. That's something that has not always been explicit. Like, young people get put on a youth council, but not like into a regular council, for lack of a better phrase. And so I think it's important, again, to be represented, to be an empowered voice at the table, so that you can, as Nolan talked about, you can be there to help shape policy, not react to policy. And so we've tried to think about that as we've put together, whether it's boards or commissions, things like that, for all the things that state government is responsible for, to be very intentional about that. And then I think the second thing that I think public officials should do is, be clear and responsive that, and seek out the voices and perspectives of young people, and actually listen, and actually take that into real consideration and demonstrate that. There are some types of policies that are sort of more geared towards long-reaching implications. And I think about stuff like our climate policy that we need to look at around climate change, for example. And I just am trying to work to be very intentional about making sure that young people's perspectives are centered and young people's experiences are centered in how we make those choices.
Wow. I love that. I heard represent, be an empowered voice, and make sure that young people's experiences are front and center. And that truly is what this Coffee with a Purpose conversation, both today and all of the discussions that we have, are all about. So while I know there are more questions in the chat, we will have to save them for next time. Unfortunately, this does conclude today's Coffee with a Purpose conversation. Our immense gratitude to Crystal, Caitlin, and Nolan for your candor and vulnerability. You all truly represent the very best of Jobs for Michigan's graduates, and we could not be prouder of you or more grateful to you. And thank you to Lieutenant Governor Gilchrist for joining as co-moderator on this important topic. Your example as a public sector leader is inspiring for our youth as they explore leadership and civic engagement opportunities, and maybe consider public service. In addition, our partners at the Michigan College Access Network have asked us to remind all attendees that a great way for anyone to gain real-life experience in leadership and public service is through national service opportunities like AmeriCorps, which engage young people in tackling tough challenges in education, health, and disaster response in communities across the country. And speaking personally as an AmeriCorps alumna, I can attest to the power of the experience. MCAN is doing great work with AmeriCorps through their program Advise Michigan, so definitely reach out to learn more if you're seeking ways to get involved. As I mentioned earlier, this event kicks off Careers in Public Service Month. Youth from around the state will have the opportunity to participate in virtual events throughout the month of February, hearing directly from state government officials, and participating in civic engagement by meeting virtually with their local elected officials. We encourage you to visit our website at www.rusolutions.org to learn more about Careers in Public Service Month under the Events tab. Feel free to share information and registration links with youth from your community who would be interested in attending. Note that the events are open to anyone, not just in youth enrolled in the Jobs for Michigan's graduates programming. So we would love to see everyone benefit. And last but never least, thank you to our audience for your time, energy, and interest.